Hello, and welcome to the latest edition of True Audio Files. Well, maybe this is, depending on when you see it. So today I am going to be doing a sound quality shootout for Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey from Bruce Springsteen. Doing it mainly because there has been a new reissue on a One Step. So here is actually my copy of the One Step right here. And I got number 1812. Which, again, I know that doesn't matter, but I do like it when it's lower number. But regardless, this one is a 33 RPM. There has been I've had a pre-order for a 45 RPM version, and this one kind of got sprung on me. I was not aware that they were going to make a 33 RPM. But anyway, I do like the 33 RPMs for a couple of reasons. One is I like the packaging better. It's slimmer. So you can kind of put it in with the rest of your record collection easier. It doesn't take up as much space, and it's just I like the packaging better on the 33 RPMs. Maybe they'll start doing this with the 45s as well, but it's got a little slip case. Everything else is pretty much identical on the inside. But anyway, so I wanted to do one with an early pressing, and I thought I had an early pressing, but I went back and looked in my collection and I don't. But what I do have is this copy here, which this is a reissue from a few years back. Looks like it was done in 2014. The significant issue about this one, I thought it sounded spectacular when it came out. Basically, it was part of a box set that I bought at the same time, which is this box set, which is all of his albums up until 1984, and a nice little case here. So was very stoked to get this because still a little bit early on in my collecting times, and I didn't have all the Bruce Springsteen albums yet on vinyl. But the interesting note about this is these were digitally transferred, and then they use the plangent process. I hope I pronounced that properly. But basically, the plangent process takes the transferred files, the digital files, and looks for wow and flutter or inaccuracies in terms of the tape speed, some tape stretching, things on that nature. And I'm sure I'm not even touching the surface on everything they do, but they essentially can look at all that kind of stuff and tell by the tones that are set on the recording at the higher frequencies beyond audible hearing, and make adjustments to the recording so it's as accurate as you can possibly get it on it as a digital file. Then they took those files, and Chris Bellman cut all the records from those plangent processed files. And I thought they sounded great. I love the plangent process. For anybody that is not opposed to digital, especially high resolution digital, I think the plangent process is amazing. I've heard some before and afters of the process, and it's pretty amazing. If you're sitting in that sweet spot, it's something that you can really easily hear. So anyway, I did that. I have that copy, and I did do some A/B comparisons to some versions. I think like Born in the USA, for example, and I think The River, kind of compared those early pressings to these ones, and I thought I liked those better. But again, I wish I had an early pressing. But anyway, I did a shootout between this 2014 plangent process reissue and the One Step. And quite frankly, they're kind of done in a similar way in terms of how they're done. They're digitized from the original master tapes, and then they cut them to the lacquers. Obviously, there's an extra step or two probably in the plangent series, although I'm not all that convinced that Mofi doesn't do something maybe similar, but maybe not the same as the plangent. I'm guessing they may, in certain circumstances, they have to fix the tapes sometimes, but digitally. And then obviously the bigger difference here is when you cut a lacquer and it's a one-step process to press the records, as opposed to the multi-step process that you have when you do a regular non-one-step record. So anyway, For those of you who don't know how I do these things, I generally listen to the whole reissue that just comes out first, all the way through, to kind of listen to it, kind of get my take on which tracks are probably going to sound the best. And then I go from there. And so I did that. Just realized I don't have my new releases that I had purchased this week, but that's okay. I'm going to keep plowing through. So I did that. I listened to the One Step, and I thought it sounded great. If I had to make a quibble about it, the one issue there's a couple of issues I had with it, and a couple of interesting notes as well in general, but one of the things was that there was a little bit of sibilance, and maybe it's my needle that needs stylus that needs to be cleaned or maybe replaced. I don't know. But there was a little bit of sibilance, but the weird thing was it tended to be on some of the tracks in the center of the recording as opposed to the end, where you typically hear sibilance on records when there's an issue with your tracking or whatnot. So anyway, that was the one issue. The one weird thing, and I think it's just because of how, in my opinion, how well they capture the information and put it onto record, there was a real obvious difference between, oh boy, why am I blanking out? Blinded by the Light and Growing Up in terms of sound. Like when I first heard this, full transparency, I also have the SACD, which I don't have here to show you, but I have the SACD, and when I was listening to that in my car, I noticed that, the bass was really punchy and really awesome. It was deep, it was powerful, it was really prevalent. When I listened to, I listened to Blinded by the Light, I didn't notice that at all, and I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, why is the vinyl so much different than the SACD? Well, then I listened to Growing Up, and Growing Up, all that bass was there. So it sounds like there was a different mix and maybe mastering that was done on the initial Blinded by the Light. So it didn't have the same tonal qualities as the rest of the album, quite honestly. So, but anyway, I thought it sounded great. There was a deep, powerful bass. I would say if you're not a huge bass guy, there might be too much bass, but deep, powerful bass. There was definitely a decent amount of treble, maybe a little bit too much treble because of the sibilance, but again, that could just be my turntable. But overall, I thought it sounded really good. Great, good wide sound stage, a pretty deep sound stage, and overall was very, very pleased with it, except for that little sibilance that I had. So then I put on the Chris Bellman Cut one from 2014. I thought it sounded spectacular as well. There were some differences. The bass definitely wasn't as pronounced. There wasn't quite as much high end on it, but it still had plenty of high end, plenty of bass, just not as much as the Mofi. One of the advantages that gives when it comes to the treble anyways, is I didn't notice any sibilance on the Bellman Cut. So there was that advantage. One weird thing that I did notice, though, however, which is very bizarre, and I don't know why this is, and maybe they just spliced it a little bit. And I believe that, if I'm not mistaken, these 2014s were remastered by Bob Ludwig. So maybe he did this edit, but there was a difference in the editing on these. An example, I should say, there's a larger space between For You and Spirit in the Night on the Mofi. It's much shorter of a space between those two tracks on the 2014. So I thought that was kind of interesting and kind of odd. But anyway, I think what it boils down to, I would say that I felt, and maybe it's because of the higher frequency or higher treble or more treble on the Mofi, but I felt that there was a little bit better definition on the better clarity on the Mofi. But again, I think maybe that could be because of the more treble that was there. Definitely a lot more bass on the Mofi. I would say the Chris Bellman Cut, which I think sounds amazing, is probably more neutral sounding. So if you're into more of a neutral sound, I would say you should go to the Bellman Cut. And if you want that extra punch, that extra deep chest pounding bass that I really like and I really enjoy, and you want that a little extra treble, I think you'd be much happier with the One Step. I would say they're very close in terms of sound quality, in terms of quality of sound, in terms of soundstage depth, soundstage width. I tried really hard to do an A/B comparison on all of them, and I really had a hard time finding a difference in the soundstage width and depth. Maybe the One Step had the advantage in the clarity in the soundstage, and again, maybe it's because of the treble. I don't know, but there was very little difference when it came to the soundstage. The biggest difference and the most noticeable difference was in the EQ. Again, so you want more neutral sound? Go with that 2014 reissue. I'm guessing they're still around, and if they're in print still, the ones that are available in print, I'm guessing, are that reissue. But if you want, probably, in my opinion, I like the more bass and the more treble, and it seems to give more clarity because of those. You definitely, and you want that punch, especially in the bass drum, go for the One Step. Obviously quite a bit more money, but I do prefer that, except for the sibilance portion of it. So that's kind of my take. What are your thoughts? Have you actually listened to and compared the One Step and the 2014 to an earlier first pressing? I'd love to hear your take on that if you have, and if you feel that there's maybe a better pressing than either of these two. I would love to hear your thoughts. So that is everything I have for this week. I hope you enjoyed the recording here. I hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week. Thank you for subscribing. If you've subscribed, if you don't, please do so. I would appreciate it. Please like the video if you liked it. And again, leave some comments below if you want to, and love to hear your thoughts and take on this. So thank you very much. Thanks, and have a great day.